Hello and welcome back to the Body for Minds podcast. In the last episodes, we talked about performance and identity and about how growth doesn't always feel like progress. Sometimes it just feels like pressure. And today I want to stay with that for a moment because there's something that often happens right at the edge of growth and it can be easy to misinterpret. There's a question I hear quite often, and if I'm completely honest, one I've asked myself too. Who would actually be interested in what I have to say? Or why would anyone want to hear from me? And it sounds like self-doubt, like something confidence-related, like something to work through or overcome. But when I hear this from the women I work with, that explanation doesn't quite hold, because these are not women who lack experience or insight or capability. If anything, it's the opposite. So something else must be happening here. From the outside, it often looks like this. You have ideas, you have thoughts, you see things clearly. There's something you could say, something you could share, or something you could step into. And then you don't. Not dramatically, not with a big decision, just a quiet pause, a delay. Not now, or maybe later. And it's easy to label that as hesitation or overthinking. But if you slow that moment down just a little, something else might just become visible. Because that moment is rarely empty. There's actually a lot happening here. Not just big dramatic fears, but very practical ones. And not even fears, just considerations. Will this take time I don't have? Will this create follow-up I can't hold? Will this turn into something I can't sustain right now? Will this just add more to a plate that already feels full? And suddenly it looks less like self-doubt and more like something else. And that is risk assessment or risk management. Because your life isn't operating in a vacuum. You're not making decisions just for yourself anymore. There are more variables now. Time, energy, work, family, logistics, responsibility. So the question isn't just, do I want this? It becomes, can I hold what comes with this? And that's not a flaw. That's intelligence. And for many women I work with, there's another layer underneath that. You're used to figuring things out, to carrying things, to making things work. And this has become part of how you operate, how you move through the world. So when something feels unclear or a step feels uncertain, you don't immediately reach outward. You turn inward. You try to think it through, make it make sense, make it manageable. That works incredibly well until you reach something that can't be fully thought through in advance. And when that happens, it's not just uncomfortable, it's unfamiliar. Because you're used to being the one who handles things, who can think things through, right? But here's where something subtle can happen over time. That evaluation doesn't stay neutral. It slowly becomes more conservative. The threshold for what feels safe enough gets narrower. And instead of asking, is this aligned with where I want to go? The question becomes, is this guaranteed to work? Is this completely manageable? Is this worth the risk? And most things that involve growth or visibility or just change won't meet that threshold. Not because they're wrong, but because they're unknown and they don't feel safe or not safe enough. So what happens instead? You don't necessarily decide against something. You just don't move. And each time you don't move, what's familiar becomes more comfortable. And what's just outside of it feels a little further away than before. And then the question shows up, who would even be interested? But if you look closely, it's not really a question. It's a conclusion disguised as a question. You've already decided this won't go anywhere. This isn't worth it. this is not for me. And from there, you don't move. This connects directly to what we talked about last time. This doesn't mean you have to jump back to the episode. I'm just saying it in case you want to dive deeper. Because growth often feels like pressure, like friction, like uncertainty. So when you're right at the edge, your system doesn't just experience expansion, it also experiences risk. And if there isn't enough margin or enough perceived safety, it will pull you back into what's known and what feels safe or safe enough. And this isn't something you solve by thinking more, because logically you already know you are capable, you have something to say, you could do this. But still, you don't move, because the decision isn't happening at the level of logic. It's happening at the level of felt safety. Not safety in the objective sense, but in the sense of, can my system hold what might come next? And you're not even questioning that consciously. If you imagine taking that step, though, what happens in your body? Is there space, or is there a slight contraction, a hesitation, a sense of this might be too much right now? That's the layer that actually drives the decision. And often because we're so disconnected from our bodies, we don't even notice that, right? We don't even notice that it's something that we hesitate. We hesitate because it's a signal we get from our body subconsciously. Here's the thing though, not every hesitation is wrong, of course. Sometimes the timing isn't right. Sometimes the capacity just isn't there, and that's okay. But other times, the system is protecting you from something that is no longer actually dangerous. It's just unfamiliar. So instead of asking, why would anyone want to hear from me? You might try something slightly different. What am I already assuming about the outcome here? Or combine it with, is that actually true? Or is that just familiar? And maybe you even want to ask, what would feel like a step that stretches me without creating something I can't hold? Thank you for joining me today. Until next time, more you, less noise.